breakout. Anyway, so the chat function, so that's one of the things we wanted to share with you today, is to really contract around the chat function when you use Zoom, and to be clear about when are we going to use chat and when are we not going to use. So there's going to be periods of time where we're just going to listen, and we're going to listen with delicious attention, because we know that the quality of our attention, there's a big impact on the speaker when we listen so beautifully. So what I want to do now is I want to create a few minutes for chat so that everybody's voice, that voices can be heard. And Kim is saying we use Teams, and I agree with you about Zoom. Kim will get in trouble here, but I feel very strongly about the fact that we have to use, it has to be horses for courses. So in the chat function, if you could just write down any questions that you are sitting with right now, having heard me talk a little bit, having been in the chat, what are the big questions that you are sitting with right now that you would like us to respond to? And people have been posting about the various technologies, and we will capture this. We'll share that. What we'll do with everybody's permission is we'll share the touch function as part of the outcome for today. Ooh, good question. So quickly, in terms of Sonomi, how do you get your company name in your picture? I'm using the virtual background. So that's one option. You could also just put your company name as part of your name in the way that your name shows up on the screen, but I'm using a Zoom background. And I also want to say, Zoom has an amazing facility to touch up your appearance. So if you click on that little button next to the video thing, it says video settings, and then under video there's a little thing that says touch up your appearance, touch up my appearance. So if I take that off, you will see I look very different. It's almost like it's like a filter on a camera. The other one is it says adjust for low light. So if I take that off, I look as if I'm in the dark. But if I use the adjust for low light button, then I look much better. And then you can have hide non-video participants, spotlight my video when I speak. I'll do that. I'll put that on so that you can see who speaks. So my video then is spotlit. Also want to encourage you to use, if it's too distracting for you to see so many people on the screen, to use the speaker view. So on the bottom, top right of your corner, there will be you can click and say speaker view, or you can click and have just the gallery. So speaker view will bring that one person who speaks into kind of it will be the big screen, and then you can see that person. So lots of other questions which we'll look at. And if we can, we'll respond to them. Otherwise, we'll have to respond to them on offline. So Rosie and Rama and Dina will look at those when they are not speaking, because when they're speaking, we want them to be fully present. So thank you, everybody. If we can, for now, kind of pause the chat. So just finish what you're saying, because we really want everybody to be very present to hear from Dina, and then from Rosie and from Rama. So let's talk to Dina. So I'm gonna hand over to Dina now. And Dina is an experienced, so Dina Kramer, she's an experienced coach and facilitator. She's been involved in the Partners Possibility Program since 2015. She's facilitated 9 leadership circles. She's a Time to Think facilitator. She's been facilitating the Time to Think module on the Partners Possibility Program. She's recently, or a few years ago, became an LPF supervisor. So she's currently supporting 15 of these process facilitators around the country. And she's one of the facilitators for our virtual launch session. So she has been, like I am, she's been sitting staring at the screen for the last 6 months. So we've asked Dina to share what she's learned and what she's been surprised by. And then also you're going to get another opportunity to taste something. So it's not just going to be Dina talking. There's probably going to be about 5 minutes of Dina talking and then 5 minutes of something experiential. So Dina, with that, I'm handing over to you.
Thanks, Louise. Hi, everybody. please, could you make me co-host so I can share slides, please? Thank you.
Sorry,
So,
Dina, I should have.
no problem. Thanks. So I think one of the first things that surprised me was with our launch sessions. The launch sessions are really exciting events because our partners are meeting for the first time. And I think, we were a bit worried in the virtual space, how is that going to translate? And it was absolutely amazing how you could feel the connection and the excitement between these partners and the whole circle together. And what I realized as well with that is that learning process facilitator, who was the holder of the space, I was coming in as a co-facilitator. Their holding of the space was really important. And when they were completely present, calm, and in charge of that space and joyful, it created that space for the whole session. Those who were nervous and getting flustered with the virtual space and Zoom, their sessions were not as connected and energizing. So I think one of the things that I realized very early on is the quality of my own presence and my inner being was so important in a virtual space. And so I started to do deep presencing, mindfulness work on myself before doing any kind of virtual presentation. Then when I would come into the space, I would also do some kind of mindfulness, just getting people into the space and shutting off. So this whole thing of Zoom fatigue, people rushing from one meeting to the next, just to create a space where people could just come in and be. So that was really important, and noticing the energy and how my energy was being reflected in the energy of the session. The other thing that really surprised me, and this is where I want to try and share my screen, is how the 10 components of a thinking environment and the applications of a thinking environment really translated beautifully, into the online space. So this is Nancy Klein, for those of you who don't know her. These are 2 of her books I would really recommend. And if you haven't done any kind of time to think work, I would also recommend a workshop on time to think. But Nancy talks about creating thinking environments, and 2 of her practices which really worked so well in the online space were rounds and thinking pairs. Now, with the round, what you'll see here, so this is a round that I've created virtually. So if we were in a normal space, we would be sitting like this in a circle, face to face. And one of the components of a thinking environment is place and creating a space that says to people, you matter. So also how you position your session is really important. So people come in, you'd have their names, they're sitting on a chair, you've got some beautiful flowers. And the way that a round works is that you ask a question, and everybody in the circle gets a chance. They go around one by one in order, have a chance to answer the question. And what's also lovely in the virtual space is that you can also use these timers so that you can bring in the component of equality, which is also part of the thinking environment, so that everybody has the same amount of time, and you don't have some people talking, on and on and on, and other people not getting space to speak. So I think what translated so well for me with this is that in the online space, people were kind of not knowing how to navigate this and often talking over each other. And then some people were really quiet because they couldn't find a way to bring their voice into the conversation. So using rounds is a wonderful way to bring all the voices into the room. And Nancy says that, people have not arrived until their voices have been heard. So the round is a beautiful way of bringing that in. The other thing that we used, which really worked well, was the thinking pairs. And we're going to have an opportunity to do a thinking pair now. But what the thinking pair is that you'll get a chance to go into a breakout room with a partner. So there'll be one other person there. And you'll be able to think out loud in the presence of someone's full attention. And so one of the things that surprised me about this virtual space is the palpability of attention. What I mean by that is that Nancy, she defines attention as palpable respect and no interruption. And that palpability is that you can actually feel people's attention. And I just noticed in the virtual space how that really translates. That when someone is listening to you with beautiful attention, how that really energizes and connects people. So talking about that Zoom fatigue, what we were finding is that people were coming into these sessions absolutely exhausted from Zoom fatigue and leaving energized, which was fascinating for me. And I think part of that is because of the processes, tools that we were using from Time to Think, which really connect and energize people. So what we're going to ask you to do, you're going to go into a breakout room. The person who's going to think first, you're going to very quickly decide who's going to think first. The person who's going to think first is going to think about this question. What possibilities or opportunities are there for you or your business now that we're going down to level 1? So I would actually suggest you take a picture of this slide so that you know what the question is. Then the person is going to have a chance to think out loud for 3 minutes in the presence of someone else's delicious, beautiful listening. So what I want to invite the person who's listening to do is for 3 minutes, I want you to lean forward and to almost listen to the person with such curiosity and fascination that you almost want to eat up what they're saying. So you're leaning forward, you're getting really interested in what they're saying, you're completely focused. So put away all other distractions, phones, pop-ups, anything else. Just be fully present to that person. Listen with your whole body, your mind, your heart, your whole body to what this person is saying, and don't interrupt them at all. When a person is silent, it does not mean that they've finished speaking or finished thinking. So even if someone is silent, please don't interrupt that space. The person will tell you that they're finished when they are finished their thinking. If by some miracle they finished before 3 minutes, because we're going to be giving you 3 minutes, then you can ask them the second question, which is, what more do you think or feel or want to say? And please ask this question and only this question. Even if you think you've got a much better question to ask, please just ask this question, because this question is a question that deepens the thinking. So we're going to give you a chance to go into a breakout room and experience this palpability of attention. Louise.
So Dina, I just want to say that because we're 140 people and Zoom only allows for 50 breakout rooms, there will be 2 or 3 people in a breakout room. And if there's 3, then that one person who will get the opportunity to be the thinker will have 2 people who will be listening to them with palpable, beautiful attention. So just accept the breakout, the invitation to go to the breakout room. I'm opening the rooms. And you don't have to do any kind of introductions. You may want to do a very quick introduction, but we want you to get into the thinking pair as quickly as possible. So enjoy. It's a wonderful opportunity to be listened to by someone else. So I hope that people keeping their phones, their videos off, because you just don't know. You don't know what's on the other side of that, you know, long number or.
No, but even typically yeah, I don't know if one goes into a breakout room if you see the name of the person on a black screen, but there was a long number, long number, that's all.
You will see the name of the person on the black screen if that person has decided to put their number on. So so let's just I'm going to hand over back to Dina so that she could get a quick debrief from you, and then we're going to hand over to Rosie. But let's just, Dina, over to you for a few minutes.
Yeah, so I'd actually love people to type into the chat, because we don't have a lot of time here, just what your experience was of that. And maybe if we just have one or two people who would like to speak into the larger group about that experience. I see, Myrna, you've got your hand up.
Yes, Dina, one of the things you don't have in this breakout room is a timer. So normally the minute I go into a breakout room and I have 3 people, I know how many minutes each have. So I don't know if it's possible for you to add the timer in, because then we all know how much time we have to share.
Yeah, so you can't actually add the timer into the breakout room, but you can, as the host, send a broadcast message to tell people where we are in terms of the time.
Okay, no, we do have it in other sessions. That's why I'm familiar.
Oh, okay.
So it's probably
Interesting.
some glitch in Zoom where you type something in, but in other sessions we do a lot of breakouts, and immediately it's something that divides the time, especially with the short amount of time that we have. Yeah, just a thought, but this was brilliant.
Yes. So guys, you are, because equality is one of the components of Time to Think, we are going to go back once Rosie's spoken, because Rosie's also a Time to Think facilitator. So Rosie's going to talk about some of her experiences of Time to Think, and then you're going to go back into the breakout room, and the other person will have their 3 minutes as well. So you will have a chance to swap over.
Thanks, Dana.
Anyone else like to say something about that experience?
Why not? I think I'd like to contribute something there. This was a very interesting experience. We were actually in a breakout room with Titi, I think is her name. And I realized first and foremost that not everybody is going to level 1, because the virtual platform allows us to connect globally. So not everybody in the session is from South Africa. So that was quite interesting at first. One of the first things that we realized, but some very interesting thoughts and ideas that came out of that. And yeah, it was a nice experience. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mark. Thanks for that. Yeah, indeed. And I think we are going to be doing, so this allows us to do a lot more international work as well, in an easier way. Yeah. Thank you. So Louise, I don't know if you're wanting to move over to, you're on mute.
Yeah, thank you. This is the mantra for 2020. I want to briefly say something about the choice to keep your video off. Now, I know that many people have bandwidth issues, so that's why you keep the video off. But I want to tell you what it feels like when you're a facilitator. And I did this the other day, and Dina's going to laugh at me, but this is what it feels like. So when I'm the facilitator and I am talking to people on the call who's got their videos off, this is what it feels like. And here I am sitting looking at you all, and I'm seeing all these kind of, and I just don't know what's going on at the other side of that kind of pillowcase. Black bag. So I want to also always encourage people that if you're on these calls, because the problem is that when you're not on video, it's as if it's easier for us to then get distracted. So then we start to do our emails and we do all that. And we know that from the neuroscience perspective, there is no way how you can really pay attention and do something else at the same time. It's just a lie. Nobody can do it, not even the women. So we want to encourage you, if you are able to put your video on. It kind of gives you that sense of humanity in a dehumanized world. Thank you, Dina. So there are lots of questions. This makes me realize that 90 minutes was never going to be enough to do this session. But let's go over to Rosie. So Rosie is our next contributor. Rosie is a very special member of our team. She's been with us for a long time. She is a learning process facilitator. She's been with us since 2014, actually. Learning processes facilitator. She is also a Time to Think facilitator and a Time to Think facilitator on the Partners for Possibility program. So Rosie, over to you to share what have you learned, what have you been struck by, and then Rosie will give another person in that group an opportunity to speak into other people's beautiful listening. Rosie, over to you.
Thank you, Louise. I just like reflecting on the comments around 3 minutes was too short, and I realized when you listen when you have the opportunity for someone to listen so beautifully to you, like the time really flies. But I'm just reflecting on when lockdown happened and we had to move on to virtual platforms. The first thing that happened for me was I felt like my second language had been taken away from me. And my second language is energy exchange with people. Like I vibe with people, my words speak, but my way of being is such a big part of how I interact with people. And then I went, oh my gosh, how am I gonna speak with people now beyond just my words? And what I learned was it was still possible, but it meant that I had to get really intentional with the virtual space and Dina spoke about embodied listening. So I needed, for me, the learning has been to listen from a completely holistically to what's happening, but also to listen for the things, the subtleties. So as you mentioned, I don't always get to see people's faces, and where there are delays as well, like I miss cues, what's happening in facial expression. But I started listening for changes, whether it's in cadence or if there's a sigh or the tempo changes, and it was amazing how much I could still pick up about what was happening in somebody's thought process from how they were speaking and as it changed. And I think, so some of the questions at the beginning were about trust and rapport in a virtual space. I'm working with people now I've never met. and it's like, how do I build trust quickly? How do I build that safe container very quickly so we can actually have meaningful conversations? And one of the things I saw at the beginning of lockdown in the virtual space was like, be a party host. So I kind of go when people come onto online with me, like I want to be there. I want to greet people. I want to engage with people. Because offline, that's what I did. People walked into a room, I introduced my hand, I would shake myself, I would shake people's hand. We would have eye contact, because then in the moment, like I connected and I locked in. And so I've been finding ways to do it online with people. And I've been blown away by how deeply and how quickly we can go when we can build the trust and relationship up front. And I like to start with grounding, because we're moving from one meeting to the next meeting. Literally it's 11 o'clock. Okay, I've just got to jump onto the session. But my mind is still busy with the 2 hours I've been in the other session. So for me, it's been important to say to people, okay, let's take these 3 minutes. Catch your breath. It also helps me catch my breath. Helps me catch my breath. And in those moments, all I'm doing is inviting people to breathe. Let go of what's happened this morning, whatever it's been, and can we arrive in this time together? So always an invitation to say, I'm here. You're here. There's 124 other people. And almost starting to bring those people into my awareness. And I find it makes such a difference. And long after, when I see them later or check in with them, it's always interesting. People always go, I've started taking those 2 minutes at the beginning of a virtual meeting with my colleagues just to breathe. And I find that when we do that, we're here, we're fully present with each other. So it's been interesting, but I also know what's possible. And yet I also, tomorrow I have my very first in-person time to think session, and I'm looking forward to it. But I also know that we can build connection and relationship virtually, and people can leave online sessions feeling like they've taken a break from everything else, energized and engaged, because we've shown up fully present for each other. And so the invitation now is for the second piece of our thinking pair. So we're going to go into breakout rooms again. And this time, if you were the thinker, which means you were speaking out loud, you're going to become the listener. And if you were the listener, now you're going to become the thinker. And in those 3 minutes, Dina and I always talk about this is, can you be curious about where the person's going with their thinking? And how much further can they go before they need to hear from you? And always that encouragement that we bring to help people go to what we call the cutting edge of their thinking, places that they've never gone before. And Nancy says in her work is the person who's thinking out loud will think that the listener is brilliant. And she says, but you will have done nothing except make the sun come out and shine by giving this other person your delicious attention. So we're going to go into our breakout rooms again.
So I just thank you, Rosie. Oh, it's always such a privilege for me to listen to you and Dina. I just want to say to you, when you go into the breakout room, there's going to be 2 or 3 people, but only one person will speak and the other 1 or 2 people will listen for the full period of time. So you don't even have to think about, you know, dividing up the time. It's just one person will get delicious attention and that person will just speak into this beautiful listening. If you didn't have a partner, so this is the difficulty when not everybody accepts the invitation, then there's one person who sits there all quietly by there. So if you didn't have a good experience last time in terms of having someone else in your room, stay in the main room, don't accept the invitation, and then we'll make sure that we send you to someone where there is actually going to be someone. So for everybody else, we'll now invite you to accept the invitation. You're going to go to the same room as you were before, and that's what Zoom allows us to do. Those of you who didn't have a partner, stay in the main room, and then we'll assign you to one of the rooms afterwards.
Louise?
Yeah.
Oh, where to in room 5? Could we put her with somebody else? Because the iPhone user that she's with